Good morning. It's another mental health moment by Shanna Alexander, licensed professional counselor. And today we're going to be talking about relationships during quarantine, the power of the spoken word over somebody, and mood, and kind of the way we manage ourselves during quarantine in relationship to the people that we love. I raised an autistic child who also had bipolar disorder, and life was very stressful for many, many years. He would have multiple meltdowns every day, and it was so extremely hard to manage my own emotions and the way I related to my family during that time. I tried to give myself grace by understanding that the situation was so far beyond normal. And some of you might be in situations like that where you have kids with special needs, or you have special circumstances in your home. But the reality is, with quarantine, we're all now kind of in a special circumstance. We're loaded down with the people that we love the most, but as we all know, those that we feel safest with, those that we love the most, can be the very people that we can lash out at most as well. Maybe it's irritability, maybe it's stress, but a whole lot of it is learning to own and be responsible for our own mood and for what comes out of our mouth. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, briefly. The scripture tells us in James that there's incredible power in the tongue, the power to bring life and the power to bring death. Now, when you're on the giving end of that, it can feel like, my goodness, buck up, you're so sensitive. Why can't I just call you out? Or why can't I just say this to you without you reacting? But when you're on the receiving end of that, the sting can blow so much deeper when somebody else is calling us out, or when somebody else has an abrupt or brute or crass word. And that is really important to remember, because we have a tendency to maximize other people's sin and flaws and weaknesses and minimize our own flaws and sins and weaknesses. So that's the first thing I want to share. Own your stuff. Rather than maximizing others and minimizing our own, we need to flip that around. Maximize our own by staying responsible for ourselves and minimize others. And I believe this is what the scripture says when it talks about love covering a multitude of sin. There is a whole lot of room in quarantine to allow love to cover a multitude of sin. Things that you can look the other way, things that you can let go, things that you can forbear, things that you can try to be patient toward, ways that you can just try not to react. Now, that's really difficult, but here's the key. We have to be in control of ourselves. We can't control our husbands. We can't control our kids, really. We can discipline them. We can teach them, but we can't control or manage their reactions. The only thing we really have sphere to deal with is ourselves. So let's talk about that. In this season of quarantine, it is really easy just to feel like you're kind of apathetically moving through life. Every day seems the same. It's a weird time. There's very little structure and very little rhythm. But the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're setting a tone to take care of ourselves. Now, when I say take care of ourselves, I mean fill up on the Lord, have time to meditate, have time to recharge. For some of you, that may mean getting up before the kids, taking a walk, breathing deeply, meditating on scripture, taking time to put in good truths and kind of set our mind and set our mood and set our bodies into that space where we're able to be aligned with the Lord and kind of be aligned with ourselves, with whatever mood and whatever thing you're going through. For some of that can be journaling. For some of us, that's more about exercise. All of those things actually can go really well with helping us to set that tone, set that mood. The other thing I just love, and I'm going to confess I'm not good at this, but it's just the tone of gratitude. I can be a melancholy, and there are times where I can tend to see the dark side of things and err on the side of grieving and claiming a more realistic perspective on truth, and kind of miss the cup is half full kind of perspective. One thing that Ann Voskamp brought to Christianity several years ago through her story was just this notion of 1,000 gifts, this notion that everywhere you look, yes, there is brokenness. Yes, there is pain and difficulty and shadow and dark, hard things. But there's also beauty. There's also light. There's also redemption. There's also glory. And for the folks who only focus on the hard and the dark, we call them realists or maybe truth tellers. And the folks who only focus on the good, we call them Pollyannas. We call them Mary Poppins, But the truth is, we have to hold both in tension. This is the dialectical nuance of holding two realities in tension with each other. So you figure out which one you lean toward, if you're the happy clappy or if you're the melancholy, kind of drowning, and come back to the middle in the continuum of holding both. So back to Ann Voskamp, she tells her story of, I think she was 4 years old when she heard a loud cry, and I'm not going to get the details exactly right, but an UPS driver or somebody like that had run over her 2-year-old baby sister. And she said she remembers from that point on her home that had previously been church-going, Christ-following, happy family turned into a dark, mourning, grieving family who never turned the lights on, never talked. And out of that, she became extremely anxious and depressed and grew up cutting herself and developed OCD and a lot of mental health issues. And in college, she was with a friend or a roommate who just really challenged in her the daily practice of starting to see beauty, the daily practice of starting to name what she was thankful for. And as she began to journal in that, the Lord, in a sense, discipled in her this practice toward gratitude, this practice towards seeing beauty. And that message over the last 5 to 10 years has, I know many people in my life personally where that's taken root and that's taking hold, and the Lord has used it so powerfully. So if that's getting up in the morning and naming 3 things you're thankful for, it is certainly in each of your relationships in quarantine that posture of saying, what do I love about this person? What do I want to keep in perspective about this person? Yes, they get on my nerves, but they are solid. They are loyal. They love me. Focusing on the beauty in your children, focusing on the beauty in another person, letting love cover a multitude of sins. Because at the end of the day, don't you want the people in your life to do the same for you? I know I do. The same grace that we want from others, we need to be willing to give. God bless you in your ability to affirm and speak love, speak powers of life.